It's that time again. Time for another episode of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for your TBR based solely on their covers. I am your hostess, Daisy X Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. If you haven't played this before, this is a game where I just look at new release book covers for science fiction, fantasy, and horror and pick one to add to my TBR based solely on the covers, not knowing anything about it, and seeing where that gets us. So moving right along to our first category, science fiction, we start with The Shattering Peace by John Scalzi. Now, I've read a couple of Scalzi books before, and he's a humorous writer. He's not my favorite writer, but I do enjoy him. This is a new tale of the best-selling Old Man's War universe. Now, I'm pretty sure that the Old Man's War series is his claim to fame, so I'm kind of curious about that, but I don't want to get a later book in the series, and I'm not sure I want to go to the first book. And just look at the cover. The cover looks kind of generic. Where's the old man? I don't know. It's, a spaceship. It looks like it's lifting something out of these ruins on a moon or something. There's another crashed spaceship there. I don't know if that has anything to do with the story, but again, for science fiction, I think the cover looks a little generic. So I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Salt Crop by Yumi Kitase, author of The Deep Sky. I am not at all intrigued by this cover. There's a sailing ship on water. I don't know what this could be about. I have no idea. There's these like squiggly lines around it, I guess it's kind of pretty, but I'm not going to pick this book up just by this cover. So, going to have to shove it. Next up is Extremity by Nicholas Binge. Old school, creepy, 5-star horror, Stephen King says. Well, that's a good recommendation. And this is in science fiction, but often they put horror in science fiction and fantasy. For some reason, just looking at the cover reminded me of John Varley's book Millennium, which I loved. It's a very interesting time travel story. And I guess I'm just saying that because some guy looks kind of like a pilot, but I guess he could be a security guard. I'm thinking time travel because that's where my mind went. And there's these three characters who I guess are the point of view characters, maybe, or three main characters. And I do kind of like the illustration. But if I'm being honest, I don't think I would pick this just by the cover, even though, let me think. The Stephen King recommendation is pulling a lot of weight. And I do think it's science fiction, but then it says also horror. Maybe punching into another dimension? Too many questions. I'm going to have to go ahead and shove it. Next up is Exiles by Mason Coyle, author of William. Yuck. There's a person in a spacesuit, and there's this sort of umber, orangey, burnt orange around them, which I guess maybe is haze or something, and this person is exiled. Since he's in a spacesuit, or she's in a spacesuit, or they're in a spacesuit, maybe they're exiled from civilization, and they have to go wandering in this space or planet. I don't know. I don't like this cover. I really don't. The font is kind of interesting, but other than that, not for me. I'm going to have to shove it. And finally, in science fiction, Sunward by William Alexander, New York Times bestselling author. And So I'm actually not quite sure which part is the sun. I guess the upper globe is the sun, and I want to say black hole in the center, but black holes could be called a sun maybe, and that looks like a moon in a burning city. I'm not that drawn to this cover. I mean, there are aspects in terms of graphic arts that I find pleasant. These three sort of circles, the font is kind of interesting. I like the black hole thing in the center, but I am kind of curious why the city is burning. Because of sunspots, maybe? I don't know. Not one I would pick up just by the cover. I'm going to have to shove it. Okay, that was the last cover for science fiction. We didn't pick any science fiction covers. Hopefully we will have better luck in fantasy. And first up in fantasy is Alchemized by Sin-Lin Yu. Alchemized. I really like this cover. I like this gothic castle or home with this gate, this illustration. It's really detailed, just the kind of illustration I like. And it's mostly in very dark colors, except for one figure in red that's walking up to it. So gothic fantasy from the title Alchemy. I do like this cover. So I'm going to have to shelve it. Next up is Thief of Night by Holly Black. The tagline is, night is made of shadows and shadows have teeth. Oh. And Holly Black is mostly known, I believe, as YA and middle grade, and I have read her before. She's a very, very talented author. This cover is very minimalistic. I mean, I guess there's a page that's sort of torn down the center, so we see this sun or sun-moon image with stars around it. Night is made of shadows and shadows have teeth. I'm thinking vampire, maybe? Thief of Night? I'm not getting a very clear idea of what type of fantasy this is. Maybe it's gothic horror fantasy, maybe it's something else. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up, Among the Burning Flowers by Samantha Shannon, best-selling author of Priory of the Orange Tree. Now, I have read Priory of the Orange Tree, and it wasn't for me. So this cover looks similar, so I'm wondering if this is a sequel to it, in which case I'm really not interested, although I do like the artwork here. I like this dragon breathing fire on this castle. I do really like all these vibrant colors. There's purple, red, yellow, sky blue, but again, I believe this is a sequel to Priory, and that wasn't a book that I enjoyed for myself. I know many of you did, but for me, I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Summer War by Naomi Novik. Naomi Novik's one of my favorite authors, but I'm a little taken aback by how faded this cover looks. There is a lute and a sword in the lute and flowers growing around it. I'm not mad about anything about this. I'm going to think this may be one of her fairy tale retellings. She's written several of them that I've really enjoyed. I'm thinking of Spinning Silver, highly recommend. And it says author of Deadly Education, which is a trilogy, Dark Academia trilogy, which I have read. Really enjoyed the first book, a little disappointed the next two. Okay, just looking at this cover, and the author is carrying a lot of weight, but if this is a fairy tale retelling, I don't know what fairy tale it could be, and I wish I got a little bit more just by other than the title Summer War, and what that has to do with a lute and a sword. Maybe it's a bard? I'm going to have to shove it. And finally in fantasy, The Maiden and Her Monster by Maddie Martinez. And I'm going to think this is yet another Beauty and the Beast tale. I do like this illustration. I like this ornate tree, and I like all the vines around it, and I like these two figures looking at each other, the maiden and her monster. I am going to think it's going to be Beauty and the Beast. I do like the illustration, but I really don't like romantasy that much, and that's sort of what Beauty and the Beast is about. So yeah, mostly because I think this is going to be a romantasy, and I don't see anything unique about this cover that's telling me this is a big twist on the Beauty and the Beast story. I think I'm going to have to shove it. Now we move on to horror. First up is Blood Slaves by Marcus Redman. And I'm going to assume it's about the Civil War, some type of horror novel about the Civil War. Maybe there's zombies or vampires. There's these hands of African Americans, one in manacles, holding, looks like the White House or a plantation. I'm going to say zombies, vampires. I'm not mad about this cover. I kind of like it, but it's also telling me this is a story, a horror story about slavery in the Civil War. That's pretty heavy, and to make that a horror novel, I don't think that's going to be for me. So I think I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is It Was Her House First by Cherry Priest. Award-winning author, haven't heard of her. There's a recommendation by Chuck Wendig. And yes, this looks like yet another haunted house story. I always say when I do Shelve It or Shove It, when we get to horror, there's always one or two haunted house stories. And this one doesn't look special. There's some birds, there's a house, there's this red sun rising or setting. Not interested. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Girl in the Creek by Wendy N. Wagner. And there is a girl floating, I assume, in the creek. And I'm assuming it's a dead body because there are mushrooms and flowers growing out of her torso. Very creepy. I like this cover. I like it's telling me this story about some type of supernatural or something that has to do with mushrooms that is taking control of this creek and killing people, maybe bringing them back to life. I don't know. I like the cover. I like the story it's telling. I'm going to have to shelve it. Next up is Mastery of Monsters by Lizelle Sambury. Now, I watch Lizelle Sambury's AuthorTube channel. She's very interesting, and I have read a Delicious Monsters, a story by her. And since I watched the channel, I know this is a dark academia story because she's talked about it before. Anyway, we have this bird with two daggers in its wings. The tagline is, "Academia is cutthroat enough without claws and teeth." And beyond the bird, we have sort of the shadow of a much more scarier supernatural bird. And I do like this cover. I think it is interesting. I think it's telling some type of story because I'm thinking about dissection of a bird. And maybe this is also the mascot of the school. Maybe. I think it's interesting. I'm going to shelve it. And finally, in horror, Beasts of Carnival by Roselia Rodrigo. With the tagline, "They come chasing paradise." Carnival makes me think of New Orleans or Brazil. And I like all these vibrant colors. It looks like this monster that's green, but there's like flowers growing out of it. I think there's horns. There's this, swirly symbol. I like this cover. It's very vibrant, draws me in. It's telling about some type of beasts of the carnival, and I'm curious about it. So I'm going to shelve it. Okay, we have shelved 3 books. One fantasy, Alchemized by Sen Lin Yu, one word, and with the Gothic mansion. And we have shelved 2 horror, Mastery of Monsters by Lizelle Sambury, and Beasts of Carnival by Roselia Rodrigo. And I think they're all going to be horror or some aspect of horror, even though Alchemized is in fantasy. It has that dark horror look to it. Mastery of Monsters could be young adult. I don't actually remember that. But Lizelle Sambury is a known quantity since I've read her before. And Beasts of Carnival, I just like those vibrant colors. I like this monster, and I am kind of curious about how these beasts are coming to the party. But of all 3 covers, the one that I think is just so beautiful and gorgeous is Alchemized by Sen Lin Yu. Again, I have not read this author before or heard anything about him or this book, so let's go ahead and read the blurb and see what I've gotten myself into. In this riveting dark fantasy debut, a woman with missing memories fights to survive a war-torn world of necromancy and alchemy, and the man tasked with unearthing the deepest secrets of her past. What is it you think you're protecting in that brain of yours? The war is over. Holdfast is dead. The eternal flame is extinguished. There's no one left for you to save. Once a promising alchemist, Helena Marino is now a prisoner of war and of her own mind. Her resistance friends and allies have been brutally murdered, her abilities suppressed, and the world she knew destroyed. In the aftermath of a long war, Palladia's new ruling class of corrupt guild families and depraved necromancers, whose vile undead creatures helped bring about their victory, holds Helena captive. According to Resistance records, she was a healer of little importance within their ranks, but Helena has inexplicable memory loss of the months leading up to her capture, making her enemies wonder, is she truly as insignificant as she appears, or are her lost memories hiding some vital piece of the Resistance's final gambit? To uncover the memories buried deep within her mind, Helena is sent to the High Reeve, one of the most powerful and ruthless necromancers in this new world. Trapped on his crumbling estate, Helena's fight to protect her lost history and to preserve the last remaining shreds of her former self is just beginning. For her prison and captor have secrets of their own, secrets Helena must unearth, whatever the cost. Okay, well, I'm excited. This is a debut. I love finding new authors. I love dark fantasy, so I'm curious about that. It sounds a little typical, like a typical fantasy. I don't see it bringing, new tropes or new ideas, but that's not always a bad thing. I am curious about it and hopeful what this dark fantasy may bring. But what about you? What book or books would you have picked based solely on their covers? Let me know down in the comments, and while you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.